My issue with business strategy, business planning is people will start 10 years, 5 years, 1 year ahead. Sometimes even 90 days is too far for you. Start with like this
Mhm.
week, right? Depending on the individual, start with today. What is today going to look like for you? Because you're kind of a hot mess, right? What if we just start getting things compartmentalized? My biggest thing is it doesn't plan for failure and it doesn't plan for alterations. So
Mhm.
I'm more of let's do things short term. Let's make quick pivots. And that's what I like to call them, right? We got to constantly pivot, 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 pivot. And then now we've got something tangible. Did we move that needle forward today? What do I have planned for tomorrow that's going to move that needle forward tomorrow? For me, that's more of how I think you can create a life by design.
Welcome back to Time-Tested Mastery, Life Lessons Sell. Today's conversation is about what happens when the market shifts, motivation fades, deals fall apart, and the plan you made on paper meets the pressure of real life. My guest today is Dr. Philip-Neri, founder of Cohesion HQ, a performance psychologist, real estate investor, former elite athlete, and longtime coach who works with real estate professionals, founders, executives, and leaders on decision making, emotional regulation, standards, and consistency under pressure. Al's work is not about hype, shortcuts, or surface level motivation. He helps professionals understand what actually keeps performance steady when conditions are unpredictable. And that fits perfectly with what we teach here. Confidence does not come first, control comes first. Control of your standards, control of your habits, control of your thinking under pressure, control of your response when the market, the client, or the deal does not cooperate. We are also going to connect this to the trust to truth method because people do not trust the person who panics, performs, or disappears when things get hard. They trust the professional who stays clear, steady, honest, and useful when life gets complicated. Al, welcome to Time Tested Mastery. I'm excited to hear about your new book.
Yeah, so the book is going to be called The Execution Advantage. So people can actually join the waitlist, theexecutionadvantage.com. And what it is, it's a framework for how to predict execution in somebody's business. And I talk about the power of understanding behavior using behavioral analytical tools. I talk about aligning the humans because human capitals are the biggest line item on anybody's P&L. And that is my PhD research. Then we talk about applying pressure, not in a negative sense, but in a controlled and calibrated environment so we create growth. But it's calculated. It's not reactive. And from there, we then can have a serious conversation about what execution looks like. From there, you can build your life by design, which I call the performance outcomes, which life by design, desired outcomes, however people want to word it. So that's the book. Would love for people to join the wait list. It is very agent focused. So it's for boutique owners, team leaders, solo agents that want to do something bigger. They know they want to start a team or they're looking at other opportunities. And I've called it from rainmaker to owner. Because as we all know, successful agents, you're the rainmaker. You're the one grinding and you're the one just grinding, making the money, but you know you've got to transition into being an owner. So it doesn't matter what level of that you're in, if you own your own brokerage or if you're a team leader or you're somebody that wants to build something.
Let's talk a little bit about your background and how you brought athletics and performance and psychology and the real estate business and put it all together. How did you accomplish that?
Trial by error. So I tell everybody that everything has happened very organically for me. So, I was an elite athlete. I had a plan when I went to college. That initial plan didn't work out. So I had to pivot and I got into government service and I got into juvenile corrections. And I actually loved it. Loved it. I was good at it. I felt at home there. And I promoted well. And I got on the statewide special operations response team. And in those environments, all the way to where I ran a juvenile prison for the state of Colorado, was we would always have high standards, and we were always pushing, pushing, pushing. It's not to say that we never, reached a certain level, but we always wanted to execute better because the sport I played, it was individual. So I fought in the ring. So I couldn't blame anybody else if I didn't have a good performance. It was all on me. And
Mhm.
I had to increase my own standards of what I expected out of myself in order to perform at a much higher level. And at some level, everybody is good. Like everybody is good. So then how do you become smarter than good? So then when we get into government service, we didn't have the ability to predict anything. We didn't pick the inmates. We didn't have a hiring process. We didn't have a culture fit survey. Whatever walked through the door is what we dealt with. And we dealt with no better word than nonsense that was happening on the outside that would impact the inside. But somehow we had to create a cohesive environment between guys that literally would kill themselves, sorry, not kill themselves, kill each other on the streets under specific circumstances, that they had to get along and sometimes work together, sometimes sit together, play spades together, play dominoes together, play bat, right? And all of a sudden in this environment, there was a different set of rules. And so fast forward, when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I realized that my whole life has been about pushing forward, and I call it moving the needle forward. And sometimes somebody needs to move the needle grossly, and sometimes it's millimeters. But either way, you just got to keep pushing. And if you ever get just complacent, I think that that's detrimental because you should always strive for better. You should always strive for better. And that doesn't mean that you're this perfectionist freak that's a nightmare to be around. No, you just want to be better, and your standards are getting better and better and better. So what I did, especially in my real estate business, is I replayed that and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So, where people would be like, oh, when you're just starting, you got to be a buyer's agent. Why? You tell me I'm not intelligent enough to be a listing agent? Like I'm just, like, where does that come from? Right? Like that's an insult to my intelligence, right? I'm not dumb. I can't be a listing agent and a buyer's agent. Like things like that. I realized that there were things in the industry that I grossly disagreed with that wanted to put people in boxes. And I was like, but I don't understand why we're doing that to people, right? Um, we just had to understand that people grow at different paces and they learn at different paces and different styles. And then that's how we can then better serve them, is when we really understand who they are as a human. So,
Yeah. Interesting. When you describe, the way that you approached your career and your growth and development, it reminds me of the Clifton Strength Score when they talk about maximizer. When you talk about always moving the needle forward, that's one of the characteristics of the maximizer. So would you say that's definitely part of you and the career that you've had up to this point?
oh, absolutely. I don't care what assessment anybody gives me. I come out the same on every single one. And there's pros and cons to that. In all fairness, and now that I'm AKA Dr. Al, I've got a PhD in performance psychology. One of the biggest things is, I think everybody looks for that driver. If we go to DISC, maximizer, if we go to Clifton's, autonomy, if we go to culture index, things that captain, if we go to predictive index, things of that nature. And they're like, oh, these people are going to be so good at sales because you're hunters, right? You're always driving for the future. You're thinking the future. That is correct. But there's also a flip side of all that that nobody ever talks about. And I think that that's very important, that we do the full array, because the flip side of that is I can come across very intimidating, very
Mm.
intense,
Yeah.
arrogant, right? Cocky, things of that nature. And that can be construed the wrong way. So where in one token it's a gift, and in one token it's kind of a curse, because you don't want to come across to people literally like that on a regular basis, to where they feel like
Right.
you're unapproachable. or
Mhm.
things of that nature. Like that's not good leadership if you're sitting at the top. So I think it's what people do with that data is the most important thing, as long as they are interpreting the data correctly. And there's always the plus, and there's always AKA kind of the minus or the opposite. And I think, and I
Right.
just call that self-awareness. And so, um, as I've developed study, research, and behavioral analytics and team alignment, cohesion, and things of that nature, it's very, very important for people to just understand the whole 360 of how they operate.
But sounds to me like you and I are wired very, very much the same way. I've been told for years that your greatest strength sometimes is often your greatest weakness, and you talked about that a little bit. And there is a way through that with awareness and with the practice and the study and the things that you're doing in your career. So I can appreciate that. My 40 years in business has taught me exactly the same thing: is that we sort of grow through. You talked about trial and error a little bit. Was a sort of a journey with that. But one thing I heard you say was when you went to college, you had a plan and the plan didn't work out, which leads perfectly into the question that I have is, why do business plans fail?
Yeah.
Salespeople create business plans and they fail, and it's not because it's a bad plan. Why is that?
It's just strategy, right? And strategy has nothing to do with actually how you execute. And number one, there's nothing wrong with dreaming, right? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. We're both futuristic thinkers, right? There's nothing wrong with thinking in the future. Nothing wrong with that. But when you sit down and you say, okay, what's the nuts and bolts going to look like? You got to shorten that time frame. So my issue with business strategy, business planning is, people will start 10 years, 5 years, 1 year ahead. Sometimes I'm like, even 90 days is too far for you. We got to start with like this
Mhm.
week, right? Like depending on the individual, like, oh, actually, we got to start with today. What is today going to look like for you? Because you're kind of a hot mess, right? So how do we just start getting things compartmentalized? My biggest thing is it doesn't plan for failure, and it doesn't plan for alterations. Now, somebody who does, let's say, real estate 101 business planning, well, how much money do you want to work? What's your typical commission? What's your conversion rate? All this good stuff, right? Okay, that's all if everything goes right. So let's take this weird market that we have had since October of 2023. It's been weird, right? It's been very weird. And no, it's not like 2008. It's just very, very different, right? So the thing is how does your business plan correlate to what's going on in your industry, right? Or with the market? Because you're going to have to do things different. You're working harder right now than you were in 2021 and 2022 when rates were 2.75, 3%, right? And everybody was just overbidding
Mhm.
like crazy because they wanted a cheaper rate. So you're working harder, right? Whether that's more lead generation, whether it's alternative lead generation, things of that nature, you are just working harder. And so with that, where does your business plan sit down and say, okay, time of market has adjusted? So in Denver, where, in the time frame I just elaborated on, that weekend you were at 10, 20, 30, 40 offers, right? Well, now you can be priced right, remodeled home. Some are going under contract in a week. Some are sitting for 60 days. So where in your business plan are you adjusting for the 1 week to the 60 days? Because my friends, if something takes 60 days to go into contract and then 30 days to close, you're already 1 quarter behind what your business plan said you were supposed to be. So
Mhm.
I'm more of, let's do things short term. Let's make quick pivots. And that's what I like to call them, right? We got to constantly pivot, 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 pivot. And then now we've got something tangible that you can say, okay, did we move that needle forward today? Okay, what do I have planned for tomorrow that's going to move that needle forward tomorrow? And things of that nature. And so for me, that's more of how I think you can create a life by design. Now, other people, I can't think of the guy's name, but the guy that wrote Atomic Habits and things of that nature. I mean, that's exactly essentially what you're doing, right? You're just creating daily habits that you're accountable to that moves the needle forward constantly. That at the end of the day, yeah, there's this perfect thing up here, but you got to figure out this, because a lot of people can spend their time up here and then they just never hit it because it was always just up there and they didn't want to do the work, or they just got derailed. And I'll give you one example, and we've all experienced this. Somebody cold calls you, or you call into customer service, right? And it's usually in a foreign country. And they are just scripted, like unbelievably scripted. And the minute you ask a question or you say something that they weren't prepared for, they just get stuck. They absolutely just get stuck, right? And they don't know what to do because, yeah, nobody has trained them to actually how to communicate, right? So that's my point with business strategy or business planning is think of it as the art of how you're going to grow your business with built-in micro habits, and you might have thousands of them that you can build smaller metrics on that get to that life by design.
Yeah. Well, as somebody that's been in the business for 40 years, I've gone through runaway seller markets. I've gone through a lot of normal markets. I've gone through some really lousy markets. And what I share with people is there's always an effective business plan in every single market. And the key to that is what you talked about with pivoting. You said, you got to pivot, you got to pivot. So talk a little bit about how emotional regulation and decision making take place when people are under stress, when things don't go right.
Great point. So the thing is, and I'm going to steal somebody else's line that I heard on, I think, a YouTube video the other day. He said, problems are just features of your life. So if you just reframe problems as in these are just features of your life because everybody has them, it changes the analogy a little bit, right? Like, oh, it's
Right.
just a feature of my life. But emotional regulation when you're stressed. So there's a lot of agents out there that are struggling right now, right? They're absolutely struggling. And you see a lot of stuff on social media, I don't want to do Uber or DoorDash. What's another side hustle I can do and things of that nature. Um, and that's frustrating, right? It's frustrating all the way around. So the thing is, though, emotional regulation, frustration, it's what do you do with it? So I'm going to give you a framework that I took from Roger Federer, the tennis player. Okay. And he called it the 5-5-5 method. Now, in his case of being one of the greatest all-time tennis players in the world, that was 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. In my previous environments of special operations, that might have been a half of a millisecond, half of a millisecond, half of a millisecond. Okay. In real estate, it might be, I don't know, 5 minutes, 5 hours, right? Don't worry about the time frame, just take the principle. So number one is you got to acknowledge your emotional reaction to anything. Period. Right? You are not a robot. You are not AI. Okay? You have emotions. And it's okay to be like, boom, right? The emotion hits you. You may curse, you may do whatever you want. Do as you wish with the emotion, right? But it's real. But the reality is you can't hang on to it. And that's, I think, what you're really, really getting at to, Mark, is you can't hang on to this emotion of a crappy market or, oh my God, like I'm just failing and so-and-so succeeding and what are they doing different? Okay, that's all drama. Okay? It's all drama. Acknowledge you're frustrated. Acknowledge you're failing. Acknowledge you're struggling. Acknowledge you don't have the money. Well, whatever the case is, just acknowledge it, right? It's real. Fine. Okay, now take a deep breath and understand that you need to get recomposed in order to rebuild. If you lag onto this, there's no way you've got a clear head to move forward. So you got to basically clear your soul, clear your mind, right? You got to be clear. And the last step is, okay, what technique or tactic am I going to deploy that is going to move the needle forward? Period. Right? So if you think through that, at Wimbledon, he was doing that in 15 seconds in between serves, right? That's what he was doing. In special operations, sometimes, again, we were doing that and maybe the whole thing was in 1 millisecond because it's so fast, but things just happen,
Right.
right? Real estate, again, you've got 15 minutes. You got an hour, you got 5 hours, you got 5 days, whatever the case may be. I don't recommend the 5 days. And the emotional regulation, the emotional,
some real estate agents take a week off when they have a bad day.
and the emotional regulation part, you need to learn how to just own it, accept it, acknowledge you're feeling that way, and then bounce back to getting clearer so you can build that plan. The other thing is you got to leverage when it comes to that plan. You got to leverage people who are thriving or have figured it out, who have a heart of gold, who have a servant leadership mentality, and will just sit down with you and help you figure it out a little bit. Okay, whether that's a paid coach, whether it's in your brokerage, whatever the case may be. Okay, but you have to understand you can't do everything, right? So you can't do what Susie's doing, what John's doing, and what Al's doing, and what Mark's doing, right? Because that's where you're just going to get trapped in this world of clutter and flutter kind of thing. But you got to sit down and help somebody build that plan of execution. And that's really what it is, okay, what can we do starting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.? Or maybe if you don't have a morning routine, we need to start something at 5 a.m. that just says, okay, this is now the plan of execution, right? That you're going to follow. And we're just going to keep testing it. And I do want to throw this out there, Mark, because I do feel strongly about this. As agents, if you're the ones having a hard time right now, do not get on social media. Like I would almost tell you to just cut it out for a while, okay? Because it's ruining your mind, it's ruining your heart, it's ruining your soul. And I'm not an anti-social media kind of guy, okay? But the problem is, my guess is you're flooded with a lot of people in real estate on your social media feed. Yeah. And you don't know if what they're posting is accurate or not, right? There are people that I know are doing no production, zero, and they are posting like they're superstars. I actually saw 2 agents post the same closing on one day. Yeah, problematic, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Very problematic. So just take a step back from that nonsense because you don't know if it's real. You just don't know if it's real. Now, there's also a lot of people offering the next shiny object, lead generation, using AI, things of that nature. And some of that stuff can be very powerful, right? If used correctly. But you also got to be cautious that you're not just going down this crazy tunnel, and you're next thing you know, you've spent 20 grand on a million different programs and courses and agentic AIs and stuff, right? You only need one. Right?
Yeah.
You need one that you follow, that you're going to put some effort into to try to do it. So I just wanted to throw that in there because it fit where we're at. And I know the struggle of a lot of agents today. So I just wanted them to just at a very humanistic level, just take that away as they kind of deal with that emotional pressure, that money pressure, and say, okay, what am I going to do different next time or tomorrow, and things of that nature. So.
When you were talking about something being a great strength and also being a great weakness, that's exactly what's happening with social media and some of the technology today. They're tools. They're like a hammer. I mean, they can pound a nail or they can pound your thumb. And so we have to be really careful about how we do that. The other thing that you said that really caught my attention was to acknowledge your emotional state. And one of the tools that I use is I change the words that I use to describe the experience. I can use really negative language to describe the feeling that I have, or I can turn around and say, that's not a problem, that's a challenge. Because in my mind, if life is like a puzzle or it's like a challenge, it sort of motivates me to get on with finding a solution. And that's really what moving forward is about, is creating a solution. So, that's a great message. And now you mentioned that we don't control the market, but you need to play the game. Talk to agents about how they stay in the game.
Yeah. So just understand that you have no say in the market, in the rates, in how people are going to buy or sell houses. Like this is a game, right? It literally is a game, and you've got to learn how to play the game. So, for example, we can't dwell on how great 21 and 22 were, right? Because guess what? It's gone. It's past. We're now in a new frame right now of hustle and grind. So the thing is, you got to figure out what is working right now. And one of the things I always tell people is life always works. So hear me out for 2 minutes on this. People always die. People always have babies. People always want better schools for their children. People always get promoted. People always get relocated. Do you get where I'm going? Those are
Yeah.
life events that never stop, no matter what the interest rate is, no matter whether we're at war, no matter what the cost of gas is. Those things never stop. They never stop. Okay? So think about this. If you positioned yourself and built your business around life and you being a solution to people's life's circumstances, because they aren't always problems, right? Some of them it's good news that they got relocated and $100,000 more a year, right? If you end up staying top of mind as people's solutions to their housing needs when life hits them, does that change your outlook on how you want to build your business?
Gosh, that's $1 million idea right there. That's $1 million idea for people.
I promise you, if you do that, your business will look very, very different. You're no longer selling houses. You're not doing that. You're just there when life hits them as the solution, because a house is the product that's in the middle of this. Oh yeah, and I forgot divorce. My bad.
Well, we don't want to think about that, but it's out there. That's for sure.
Right.
So let's sort of morph a little bit into, trust, and how important trust is to be elevated above transactions. And now, earlier, off camera, we are having a discussion about your past life in the correctional facility, and you were talking about a little tool where you created a way that people addressed each other that gave both dignity and familiarity at the same time. So, talk a little bit about how we change the way that we treat other people to create that trust and make those connections.
Got it. The part Mark is referring to is in the juvenile prison I ran. The youth called my staff Mr., Mrs., or Miss, and then they used their first name. So the Mr., Mrs., and Miss was the sign of respect, the sign of authority, the sign of an adult. But then the first name was now relationship based. Because at the end of the day, our goal was to try to keep these kids from pushing up into the adult system, right? And trust me, by what I'm going to tell you, I had standards and I was a disciplinarian, and I expected a tight ship, both from staff and from incarcerated youth. But the way we did that was what was different. Now, in establishing trust in the real estate journey, I know people, they always say, it's an experience, right? Think about it. It's one of the most emotional experiences people go through. But sometimes we don't give enough credence to the emotion that somebody is going through, because at the end of the day, it is transactional for us. Let's not lie, right, to each other, right? We're not the one buying the house or selling the house, right? So we want to do a good job. We want to represent, right, things of that nature. I'm not devaluing that. But at the end of the day, it is a transaction that our broker tracks. The records are given by your associations, by your brokerage, by weird designations around the country, right? So it's a metric that's tracked. That transaction is tracked. So the thing is, you have to understand, going back to it, is that you want to be the person that people come to. So during that transaction, it is very emotional. Just think through this, right? Going to look at houses, husband and wife getting them on the same page of where they're going to raise their family, we'll say, or where they're going to retire forever. The key that I just said was getting them on the same page. And if you've been doing this long enough, you're all laughing, right? And then, okay, so let's say you can't. Well, that's emotional to both of them. But guess who's the voice of reason? You are. You are. I used to love it when they would be like, what would you do? And, they just would be like, well, I'm not the one buying the house. But you can't answer like that, right? You can't answer like that, right? They're looking for you to weigh out the pros and the cons for them. right? That's all it is, right? And that you're not steering anybody. You're not telling them to buy the house or not buy the house. You're just weighing out, hey, let's see what the pros are and what are the cons, right? So let's just say they end up going on the house. Are they nervous when you make the offer and you haven't gotten a response back from the seller? Oh, you better believe it, right? Right? You've put a 7 p.m. deadline for tomorrow, 9 a.m. Have we heard anything yet? And I mean, and you've got a couple ways to respond to that. No, the deadline is 7, or acknowledge that they're excited, anxious, 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be, and then say, hey, I'm going to give the agent a few hours, and then I'm just going to politely check in. I'll get back to you here probably after lunch, right? Does that ease their mind? Does that ease them that you're on top of it? Because that's at the end of the day what they really want to know, right? They want the answer, but they also want to know that you're really on top of it. So we get through that. You go on a contract. Guess what? If they've never bought a house, is earnest money a little confusing? Can be, if you haven't explained it correctly, right? Then we got inspection. We all know that's a crapshoot all over the place, right? Then from there, guess what? What do we have next? Is the lender going to agree with the value? And what if they don't? What if it comes in higher? Right? Things of that nature. And then all of between this, the lender's asking for 63 documents that they've already asked for. But now they need all the new stuff, right? So when you think about that, even when I describe that, and I'm kind of being funny as I describe it, right? To the person that's never bought a house, or the person that's only bought one house, it drives them crazy. That's a law. That's a law, right?
Yeah.
Because we do it all day, every day, we're kind of immune to that. We're immune to the steps. But if you think about it, if we had a brain surgeon on here and we asked him the steps for brain surgery, would we all be overwhelmed? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But we're going to trust him that he knows what he's doing on each and every one of those steps, right? So real estate is emotional. Acknowledge it. Don't run from it. Acknowledge it. Use it as a strength again, that you're there for your people. Remember I talked about life circumstances? All those circumstances I talked about were emotional. They weren't transactional.
Right.
They're emotional, good or bad, right? Be that person, be that agent. And that will come across as that you actually care, and the house is just the byproduct. That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah. And it is a challenge for an agent that's been in the business for a long period of time to be as excited and as fresh as they were early on in their career. I mean, I do not really want to negotiate one more water heater replacement if I ever have to do it again. And yet what you said was golden is the clients, I mean, they're in this emotional state and we're thinking, oh, that's just par for the course. Don't worry about it. Well, that's not the right response. I mean, they're emotionally involved with it. And if we're just saying, oh, no, don't even worry about that, that's not important, we're invalidating the people that we're talking with and the people that we're serving. So that's a great reminder to, stay engaged and stay connected with our clients to build trust. So let's finish up with, I know the topic of your book is about performance, and you talk a lot about standards and leadership. What's the one or two things that you would give to any leader going forward that they should make sure that they're addressing in their business today?
There's a law, but you got to lead from the front, like you do. Like if people are guessing where you're at or what you stand for, like that's crazy. Like that's just crazy to me, right? People have to know what your standards are and who you are as a person and as a professional. And that would be the thing I would really hone in on, aka the employee and broker, managing broker, team leader, CEO, et cetera, founder, whatever you want to call yourself. Is just know who you are and then build your brand around that. Because when you're trying to be somebody else as a leader, guess what? Now you're modifying behavior. I'm going to go back to behavioral analytics real quick. I'm left-handed. I can write with my left hand fluently all day long. I'm 55. I've been writing since I was 3, we'll say, right? 52 years I've been writing with my left hand. If you make me write with my right hand, how well am I performing? How clear is my mind? Am I stressed out? Do I have to concentrate more? So think about that just in leadership. right? You are who you are, but know who you are versus trying to operate like this. And if you are this and you know you don't like people, then don't become a leader, right? Don't like. It's that simple, man. You don't like them, so why in the world would you want to lead them, right? So
Yeah.
it's when it comes to leadership and management, right? I do a lot of consulting with a lot of high end CEOs, and people always are like, "Where do you start with the CEO?" Right? Because we can't just point downhill. We got to point inward first, and then we can
Yeah.
start pointing downhill as we start fixing stuff, right? And we start elevating that standard. Um, so yeah, for any of your agents, just know who you are. And Mark made a funny comment about the replacement of the water heater, right? That he does, and the comment was, I just don't want to negotiate another water heater, right? Dr. Rao has a simple answer. Then you should not represent another buyer or seller ever again, right?
Right.
Because we know it comes with tool of the trade. Now, obviously, he's been in the business 40 years. Obviously, he can negotiate a water heater, right? But if you're so emotionally at the point where you're just like, I'm done, okay, then you're done. Let's find something else to do with your skill set of you being a successful agent, broker, owner for the last 40 years. Where does that all transfer to, right? Where you can take all that knowledge and lived experience and do the next phase of your life, right? And it doesn't have to be involving buyers and sellers, or the case may be. So those are the questions you guys need to really start asking yourself. Is goes back to that life by design. And the one thing I would say, Mark, to add to that is a life by design is earned, not given. You got to earn it, right? You got to put in the work. You got to scuff up your elbows, scuff up your knees, take a couple punches. You got to earn that life by design, right? Nothing worth it is ever easy. So don't be afraid of the challenge in front of you to get after that life by design that you truly want.
Awesome. Let the audience know how they can reach you and Cohesion HQ, and also a plug as to where they can find your book, which is close to being released now.
Yep. So the website for Cohesion HQ is teamcohesionhq.com. So teamcohesionhq.com. The website to join the waitlist for the book is theexecutionadvantage.com. Theexecutionadvantage.com. I'm on, YouTube, TikTok. I mean, all the social media platforms except for X kind of thing. And I post pretty regularly. A lot of it is about leadership type stuff. So if you want that content, I'm not hard to find just because my last name is so unique.
Now, that was a strong conversation with Dr. Al Philip-Neri. Here is what I hope you heard clearly. Business plans do not usually fail because the spreadsheet was wrong. They fail because people have not built the standards, emotional discipline, and decision-making habits required to execute when pressure shows up. That is the heart of control before confidence. Confidence does not come from waiting until you feel ready. Confidence comes from doing the right things repeatedly, especially when motivation fades. And Al's message that also connects deeply to the trust to truth method. Clients do not trust the agent who panics, performs pressures, or disappears when things get difficult. They trust the person who stays steady. They trust the person who can tell the truth without drama. They trust the professional who can operate inside reality instead of complaining that reality changed. For real estate agents, sales professionals, and leaders, the lesson is simple. You do not control the market. You do not control every client. You do not control interest rates, inventory, emotions, or timing. But you do control your standards. You control your preparation. You control your communication. You control whether you react emotionally or respond professionally. And when you control those things, confidence starts to grow. Thanks for listening to Time-Tested Mastery Life Lessons Sell. If this episode helped you, share it with an agent, leader, or sales professional who needs to stop chasing motivation and start building standards. Until next time, keep building mastery one disciplined decision at a time.